Well, I think we're at this kind of Wild West meets the Middle East kind of moment. The hostages, the Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoner exchange, it was moving along at a kind of clippity-clop pace. And then you had President Trump come along with this announcing a high noon deadline on Saturday for all the hostages to be released. And suddenly we're in a Gary Cooper movie. The White House just proclaimed Donald Trump a deal maker in chief. So the question is, has he overdone it? And I don't think so, partially because the parties themselves have too much at stake. I mean, the hostages, it's just they're too frail for the deal to fail. But beyond that, Netanyahu has his domestic politics, and the ceasefire is very popular among his people. And he also has assurances from the White House that if he needs to go back in and fight at a later date, he's already had an extended deadline in Lebanon, and I don't think it'll be a hard challenge for him to get that in Gaza. And for Hamas, I think they also would like to free some more of their prisoners. I remember on October 7th, when the Al-Aqsa flood was announced, this kind of ambush on Israelis and this murderous slaughter, when asked what their goals were, it was to empty the Israeli prisons of their what they call their martyrs or their heroic fighters. So I think that with Gaza is gone, it's in rubble, but this kind of prisoner release is a tangible gain. So I do believe that if, the Israeli defense minister did say if the hostages aren't released by Saturday, he said plural hostages. He didn't say the word all. I'm going to guess that they're leaving a little bit of fuzziness and wiggle room, that if 3 are released as scheduled, the deal will go on.
OK, so you're still thinking that there is wiggle room in what they're saying. We're getting different interpretations of what exactly they mean by all the hostages. What then, Laura, do you think might be the next move from Hamas? You've talked about that a little bit, but expand on your thoughts.
Well, I think it's interesting. We used to have President Biden with his buzzword of de-escalate, de-escalate. Trump's come in and he's all about escalation. So interestingly, of the mediators, it's Egypt and Qatar who I think might play a moderating role here. And I do believe that they're going to be passing messages, from Israel to Hamas and back and forth to make sure that the deal stays on track.
And Laura, very, very briefly, if you would, we've heard, people may have heard Steve Witkoff's name mentioned there in association with the negotiations on Ukraine and Russia's war on Ukraine. He, of course, has been Donald Trump's Middle East envoy. Is he going to look after both these briefs, or is he being pulled from this Middle East brief? You may not know the answer to that.
Well, I think that in his worldview and in Trump's, they're all the same brief. One thing that he said, Witkoff, when he was fresh off that plane and that success of freeing the American prisoner, Mark Fogel, was that our administration, meaning the Trumps, believe that no American should be left behind. He said it was almost like a military, motto that no Americans should be left behind. And let's not forget that there are at least 2 Americans who are alive in the dungeons or tunnels of Gaza being held right now who have the opportunity to be released if Trump comes through. That's another motivating reason. He's about America first, and these are Americans first.